In this exercise, we're going to explore some of the attributes and properties of the pen tool in Adobe Illustrator. Let's get familiar with some of the basics before we actually start an exercise. I'm going to create a new file by going to File, New, and just choosing, letter size is fine, orientation, landscape. I'm going to click on Create. And you can usually find the pen tool on the left here of the tool panel. Now, if you're using a single column tool panel, it's usually pretty much at the top as well. And it's important not to confuse it with a tool that looks very similar to it called the curvature tool. Sometimes you might have like a brush or something that might be confused, but basically you're looking for the pen tool, which looks like this over here. If you hold down the pen tool, you'll see a lot of other additional pen tool options. Add anchor point, delete anchor point, and anchor point tool. Now we're going to explore all these three in this particular warm-up exercise so you can see what they do. Now the pen tool is kind of special in that it's not a drawing tool in the traditional sense. You can't just click and draw on the screen because you end up with this kind of thing. So what you're doing is you're drawing with points, and you're drawing with curves and control points, right? So if I click once and drag my mouse, it sets the anchor down there, and now I can move my pen tool to different areas. The line that it's going to form is it's giving me a little preview here. Now if I click and drag, I get this kind of control point over here. Now this is what's called a Bezier curve, and these control points allow me to reshape the curve at any point. Now if I just click without dragging, I end up just setting down points and working with straight lines. If I click and drag though, I can mix in some curves and get some special shapes here. So once I'm done, I can hold down Control and click anywhere on the canvas, and it completes my line. Now this line is completely editable. If I choose my selection tool over here right at the top, I can click it and move it and squish it up and down, etc. So this is still an editable shape in that if I choose now my direct selection tool, it'll reveal all the little points that I clicked on earlier, whether it's a curved or straight line, and at every juncture that you see here, there's a control point called an anchor. And you can see them highlighted, and the UI will tell you that it's an anchor. There's also these little circle indicators over here. What these allow you to do, and the preview is on the icon, it's a little arc. It says that if you click it and drag, it'll convert these sharp corners to curves. See that? Now these corners are all curved. It does that to the whole shape. If I click here and drag it back up the other direction, they turn back into sharp corners, right? So you can see the effect more exaggerated here. If I click this, you can see what happens to that curve, but it also affects every other sharp angle here. So that's how you straighten out the curves. Now these anchors, if you click on an individual anchor, it turns blue and it shows that it's selected, and now you can click and drag it. So on these sharp corners you can change the angle, you can change the shape, and on the curve, if you clicked on a curve control point anchor, you'll get these little handles there and there. Now the direction of these handles and the length of these handles define how this curve is shaped. Okay, so you have individual control points that you can drag here to shape that curve. So instead of just grabbing an area and moving it, which you could do also, you can click on the path itself and move it, and you can see that the control points are moving with it. And now you can fine tune again. Now here we have an interesting situation where you have a straight line joined with a curved line, and the handle only controls one side of this equation, because these handles only appear on curved lines. How do we turn a straight line into a curved line? For example, let's say I wanted to have this line here turned into a curve. Well, I'd go back to my pen tool, hold down the button here, and choose Anchor Point Tool. And what you do is you click an anchor, and now if you drag, it converts it into a curve. The other thing that you do with the anchor tool, normally you would move the handle here, and you can see that its opposite end moves with it in a straight line. Well, with this anchor point tool, you can grab the individual handle and only bend one side, leaving its counterpart on the other side where it is. So now you can bend this one independently. So they're still kind of connected, but you can see how you can move each one individually now, as opposed to this one, where if you move one handle, the other end kind of follows it. I could do that here again, choose my anchor point tool, and now bend this one independently. If I click this point again, where I have these two curves, it will convert these back into straight lines. If I click here, converts this end to a straight line, which merges into a curved anchor. But if I click here again, now it turns into a straight line. Click and drag, and it converts these both into curves again. Now let's say I have a shape like this and I want to make it a bit more complex. I want to add a few more curves along the way. What I can do here is add anchor points. So I would say, okay, I want another control point here and another control point there. And now with my direct selection tool, I can have more ways of managing this particular curve. And again, you can switch back to the anchor point tool and play around with these individually to create very complex shapes. Now, if you have too many of these control points, you just want to keep things simple. For example, you want to simplify this shape over here. You can choose the Delete Anchor Point tool, and if you hover over one of these anchors and click it, it disappears. It gives you fewer control points, but it also impacts the shape of the curve, because now the pivot points have changed. Right? So if I get rid of this one, which is joined to this one, it's going to have an impact because it's related to the previous curve. So that's basically it. You have your pen tool for drawing shapes. You have your, one thing I should mention. Remember, you can press Control at any point to end the curve, but if you bring your pen tool back to an open-ended line, you can continue closing the shape, and when you get to the end, you see that little circle on the icon. It's telling you that it's going to complete the shape, and now it's a solid shape. If you try to fill an open line like this, if I fill it with red, for example, what it's looking for is the first open end, and then it's looking for this the last open end, and it can get a little ugly because it doesn't know the boundaries of what's open and what's closed. These are a bit more obvious. If I change the color here, it's contained within this closed shape. So that's pretty much the pen tool in a nutshell. Just to summarize, you can add anchor points, delete anchor points, and the anchor point tool is so that you can create both curved and sharp objects and allows you to control the handles with a bit more precision and independently. That's it.